And just I want to hear her answer because we had a little conversation right before this, so I'm very curious to hear what she has to say.
We've all experienced it as well. So I like how so many Black women are stepping in.
Mm-hmm.
We have boundaries. We can say no. We can be vulnerable. We can be raw. Like all those things is not just what white women have. Black women have those as well.
Exactly.
Oh, generationally, we're so different. Because our parents and their parents or what have you, they literally gave up who they are and who they were in order to
Welcome to
Marriage Pinnacle's Chats from the Peak,
where God's favorites link up.
My name is Dr. Lara.
And I'm Emmy.
And we have some special guests. Like, I'm going to say every single time because all of our guests are special. And I just love the fact that, our network is like top tier. And so we can, send a little text message and just get a couple people to pop through the podcast to bless us with some gems, to pull up on us. And so today we have Dr. Chanda and Chika here. And so these ladies might look a little familiar to you. Yes, it's them. We have, we're not really big on just having anybody on the brand, like anybody to come. The people who come on a podcast has got to have a little bit of sense. That's like literally the criteria.
Number one requirement.
Just a little bit. I mean, low key a lot, but like at least, we do our little like, all right, they're good. And it's never a conversation. We're always aligned. And so I'm like really excited for our conversation today because, for those of you who've been rocking with us for some time, you know that our podcast, start off as marriage, but we've really expanded because we just think health is important. Being a healthy person in a relationship, being a healthy person in a marriage, all of those things are key. And so we have Chika and Dr. Chanda here to kind of bless us with this conversation we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to ask that you guys, for those who might be living under a rock and don't know y'all, that's fine, whatever. Dr. Chanda, I'm going to have you go first, and then Chika, I'm going to have you round us off. So please introduce yourself.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Chanda, here with these beautiful ladies. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
So I am a licensed clinical psychologist, which means that we basically went to school for a lot of years a whole bunch of years. Laura, I just be calculating over 12 years.
Literally a long time.
It's wild.
Yeah.
It's very wild. So I do that. I have a private practice. In addition to that, I enjoy being a creator. So I do have a show as well called Paging Dr. Chanda. It is mental health based. We also talk about wellness, the culture, and everything else in between. We are recently Webby nominated. So now, thank you.
She bringing it home, y'all. She bringing it home.
We're going to trust God on this, whatever God says so. But, I'm not sure when this will air, but if it is aired prior to the 17th, y'all go ahead and submit your vote so we can take the W home.
Come on now. I love it. Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Yes, this is lovely. So I am Chika, and I'm just so excited to be here with you two ladies. I just love conversations like this. So I can't wait to get cozy with y'all. But I would say I'm a tech entrepreneur. So I run a tech company called Afropolitan with my husband, and we build products for the diaspora. I'm also a content creator and writer. And lately, I have been writing a lot about being in my 30s, life transitions, and they've been going viral. So that's why on every day, your cousin, you send me messages like, I see yourself everywhere. And so I'm really just excited because I think this conversation is needed. I'm married. I run a company with my husband, and we did a lot of therapy before we even started running a business together. So I know the importance of just getting that mental health check, especially in marriage.
That's good. I love it. Thank you guys. And so, here on Chats from the Peak, we talk about everything. We talk about the highs, the lows, the good, the bad. We do it from a clinical lens, a cultural lens, and a little bit of life experience. And today's episode, we have other people to glean from with their life experience, from their knowledge or expertise. And so I'm so excited for this conversation. So every episode, we always got to start with Icebreaker because, like you said, we want to get cozy. Loosen up. Even though y'all loose, y'all are pros. So low-key, we can kind of skip it, but we not.
And get to know you guys better.
But just so that our audience can get to know you guys a little bit better. So we always, I don't know, for some reason, this or that's are always, like, we always love a good this or that. So this or that, Instagram or TikTok?
I'm an IG girly all the way.
Really?
I'm an IG.
You have not been getting
It's so funny about this though, because I actually have grown a following on TikTok, and actually TikTok was low key a little easier to grow.
Yeah.
Instagram, you will every follower work. You working for it, but it's interesting. Maybe because I'm a millennial, and so I feel like there's a community more on Instagram. Yeah, I feel like I get so many DMs on Instagram. I feel like TikTok, it's a lot of like. The people who message me, it's like, can you coach me? And I'm like, sis, there's a link in the bio. You can
They're asking for a lot of stuff.
They asking for a lot of stuff. So I prefer Instagram.
Okay.
But
all right. How about you?
Yeah. So this or that, I would say TikTok. And it's because people describe Instagram as the Sunday's best version of you.
Yes.
Whereas TikTok is the come as you are. And I just like to come as I am, filterless, just talking my stuff.
Just
So
come on there.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy. We had guests on prior. And what was the example? She said, I could ask for a dress on TikTok. And they just want to send a link for the dress. On Instagram, they just want to DM me for products. Type I like dress for you to get.
I like to know it.
Like,
Link.
it just is so much work sometimes on
Yes.
Instagram. So it's interesting you said that.
yeah,
But I love it though.
my following is bigger on Instagram.
Okay.
I'm growing like
Yeah.
crazy. But I will say, and this is me getting the technical lens, Instagram has a very different algorithm
Yes.
than TikTok.
Yes.
I do like TikTok just for like, if I just want to laugh.
For
have
you
a
as a
little time.
user.
Yeah, for me, just
Okay.
like
I like
personally,
that.
I like TikTok. But as far as me as a creator,
Yeah.
I prefer Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
for the bag, they always pay more for Instagram.
Okay. All right.
So,
that's
true,
good to know.
true,
Good
true.
to know. Okay.
Good to know.
All right.
The next one is, since you are both podcasters, do you prefer visual podcast or audio podcast? And I want to know consuming and creating.
Yeah.
On both sides.
And just I want to hear her answer because we had a little conversation right before this. So I'm very curious to hear what she has to say.
Ooh.
I would say visual.
Uh-huh.
I would say visual because I feel as though it's one thing to be able to hear the information.
Yes.
It's another thing to see me convey it. Like the people
the hand
really feel like, they feel like they know you once they see
I'm
it.
telling you.
Yeah,
I love
even
it.
though I feel like it is more work.
It is.
But I enjoy that aspect of
Yeah.
the visual.
It's a tie for me because funny enough, I've been listening to podcasts before the whole
Was a thing.
visual
Yeah.
was a thing. So still my favorite podcasts are actually more audio led. And even when I listen to a visual podcast, I tend to just have it on and I'm not even
white
paying
noise.
attention
Right.
to the video. So yeah, it's a little bit probably audio. Probably
Okay.
audio. Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm an audio.
Yeah.
She's the audio.
I'm an audio. Yeah.
She's visual.
Because I listen to the 2-hour podcast and I'm not trying to sit down for 2
And
hours.
watch it.
And that's
and look
literally
at
what she
you.
says
what I
too.
said.
She said
I
it's
get
just
distracted.
too much of my time. I was like, she said it's her eye energy is being
my
wasted.
Yeah.
my TV time. Like, I need to be watching other stuff. I want to be watching.
Exactly.
But
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Okay. So being catered to or doing the catering. And this could be in any length.
That's all we ask.
I'm gonna have to agree with you on that.
My middle name is Soft.
Literally.
She's
like, excuse me.
So
Really?
you guys both say being catered to.
Yes,
Okay.
for sure.
Very on brand.
For sure.
Right?
Period.
Very on brand.
Okay.
Okay. And so we're going to say DMV or home because we know you're both kind of
You live in the DMV, but you have home.
Yeah.
And you
are from the DMV.
but you now live somewhere else's home.
in Nigeria.
So DMV or home.
That's hard. I mean, I grew up in the DMV, so I love my girls, like my childhood, everything's DMV. But I do at this stage of my life,
That's
let
good.
me
You gotta do it based on
be specific. This stage of my life to achieve the full softness, Nigeria.
That's right.
Okay.
I ain't mad at that.
I love that. And that's where you live now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I will say the DMV. I love
Really?
DMV, DC, Maryland culture.
Yeah.
It's very Black. It's very,
very
and also like affluent.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
you know,
Just
it's
talking
very
about-
different when you go to different cities.
Yeah.
And, you know, just
and where you from?
originally from Delaware.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I always, I say to people, there needs to be a support group for Black girls who grew up in Delaware, but also like those who had stuff. Like if you came from a family with
That was,
like
stuff.
like you and you didn't grow up in an environment like that, you Yeah, you get called out. You get like, oh, what your parents doing? They selling drugs. They stealing from the church. Like, all these things. And I'm just like, when I came to Maryland, it was like,
it's nothing.
It's
normal.
Yeah, it's like so many Black people living that soft life.
And
it's like praised. So I'm gonna start that support group one day.
Go ahead.
Issa Rae's having that issue right now, where because she grew up in an affluent Maryland area, and people are like, "Oh, she always acting like she down for the culture." So you're right.
Oh, wow.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. There does need to be a conversation on that.
Absolutely.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
And so, because we're talking about softness, our next question is: would you rather have a whole day for self-care? Or just like an activity? Like, I'm just go to the spa and I'm gonna get back to work. Or would you just rather have the whole day off to just chill
and be self
and do your self-care?
I need it to be embedded into my week, like a couple days throughout the week, as opposed to like a whole day. If I have a whole day off, I'm so anxious. Like, okay, there's other things I can be doing. I need to be writing. I need to be doing something. I would say embedded in.
Yeah, I need like little habits just to remind me of my softness throughout the day, whether it's like breathing, meditation, walking, things like that. So it needs to be woven in.
Okay, that's really good. Like, how about you? I'm curious.
You know me.
Because take you a while to get to that.
Don't start now. Come on now.
Working on that.
We're sitting together on the couch. Okay. I need it interwoven, even though I likely probably need a whole day.
Yeah.
Mammy, thank you. I need a whole day, but the interwoven would probably do me a little bit better. Yeah.
And I'm a whole day girl. Okay. I don't want to think. I don't want to do nothing. I just
take me to the next space, into the next place, and then
give me
feed
a whole day every time.
Yeah.
But I do like the embedded idea. I feel like it's better. It's better, easier to have a good balance.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So I'm glad we got to know Dr. Chanda and Chika a little bit better, and so we're gonna get into our conversation. So, for those of you who don't know, Chika coined the phrase soft life.
Soft life. Soft life
and
owner
like
right here.
The owner. And we don't need to get into the receipts. Like, I'm not going to, like, one thing I'm not going to do is say something that it ain't the truth.
Yeah.
So if you want to go look back and scroll to the top of Twitter when it was Twitter, you can do that. But Chika coined this phrase, right? And so we hear it a lot.
Yeah.
It's like interwoven into like at least every other sentence, like soft life, soft this, soft that, right? And so, Chika, when you came up with the phrase, what was your intention? And what does it really like mean?
That's an amazing question. So I started talking about this thing in 2018, right?
Wow.
And where it really started to converge was actually Clubhouse days, right? So I had a Clubhouse room. Funny enough, it was your cousin that encouraged me because he knew I was talking about it. He knew I was learning.
Last time I'm not saying it no more. I'm not saying it no more.
He knew I was coaching, women on it, and it was part of my day-to-day life. And so I started, he's like, you know what, you should start like a little like feminine energy, soft life club, right? And this was before we could see the number on Clubhouse, like how many people in your club. So I started that, just started sharing it. And really I was sharing it because I tell people I was a tech bro, okay? I was raising capital. I was always around men. And by the time I finished my first tech startup, I was burnt out, okay? To the point where my eczema was all over my body. Yeah, it was physical, like burnout. And so I started learning about feminine energy to get back to me, to get clear of who I was and to get in touch with my intuition, right? Because I always tell women, your most powerful thing you have in life is your gut, is your intuition. And that's the reason why I started talking about it. And I was like, ladies, all of us were running companies, running multiple businesses, side hustles. And that's a lot on a woman, right? How do we get back to ourselves and get balanced? And that's why I started talking about soft life. And then I put it out there and so many women resonated with it. But I think it took a turn somewhere else. We'll get there. But that is the original reason was it was for women's wellness. Yeah. That was the reason why I started talking about it.
Yeah. So
that's really good.
That's really good. And, Dr. Chanda, I want to throw this to you. Like, now what you see it as, okay, so whatever that is to you, whatever's out in the ether, what do you think soft life means to like the Black woman.
Yes. To the Black woman, really reclaiming what femininity looks like for us. And you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, correct, girl. Yes.
Because, capitalism and the way in which we are socialized in society, it causes a lot of us to feel like we have to be hard because that was a notion that was bestowed upon us, right? When thinking about being a strong Black woman or, being that woman who just always has it put together, I have to have my cape on, I have to make sure, everybody's good in my family, in my neighborhood, in my community or what have you, and therefore putting myself on the back burner. Softness is basically allowing Black women to rest in the fact that we know that we can put ourselves first and it's not selfish. Right? So, and we'll probably get to this later, but I think a lot of us kind of like changed that or appropriated the term from what you originally created it for, and seeing it more so as like, it has to do with like the glitz and the glam. And
by the time I got it, that's what it was.
I can explain what happened.
Okay.
Right. Because I've been talking about this lately, and for the story. So what happened was, when I put it out there and we were on a roll, I had a podcast with my friend, we were, moving. And unfortunately, I think this was 2021. And you guys know Derek Jackson, right? He was
Derek.
Derek. He was like a creator, helping women. Quotes,
predatory.
Predatory. Literally. And it's funny you literally use that word. So basically, things were discovered that he was cheating on his wife. So a well-known feminist, I will not say her name, on Twitter compared me to him. And said I was being predatory on women. Right? She had no idea what I was doing. She didn't really care what my message was, and it went viral. And we went viral on Twitter, and we were trending on Twitter. So to be honest, after that, I stopped talking about it because I was like, okay, clearly some of us are not ready for this conversation. And it's gonna be private, one-on-one conversation with women. If you approach me privately, I have no problem having that conversation. But I felt like going back to this protection that I needed to protect myself, right?
Sorry that happened. It caused a lot of stress.
It was really, really crazy. And then oddly enough, then I kind of stopped talking about it. And then I have a lot of content creator friends. And so they now took it and then it just went. So then people started interpreting their own version of
I think is what happens, right?
Because by the time soft life, by the time that phrase started showing up in my algorithm, it was like, I'm going shopping today. I'm a soft life, or my man is spoiling me. I'm a soft life. I'm a soft life. It became about more of like a lifestyle, and it became more around sort of like exterior things, external things. Like I know we had a conversation on the podcast one time where I was talking about my self-care, and I was like, well, going to the spa, I love shopping, and Lara was like, that's good, but that's not self-care.
Right.
Self-care is internal. It's things that replenish you.
Exactly.
And I think how you describe soft life in the beginning, that's what the message that needs to be heard. Not necessarily like, oh, I get to just stay at home and sip matcha tea while the nanny takes my kids to school. You know what I mean? It's not the external stuff. It's more so that internal work and that hardness. And I think this kind of takes us into the conversation about the superwoman complex. And so when we had an episode about talking about how, especially Black women, because we're Black women, but Black women feel like we need to carry all the weights. And then we're also first daughters on top of that.
I'm a first daughter.
You're first daughter as well. So it's like you now carry everybody's problem on your head, like we would say. And there is no room for softness, right? And so the name of the episode is How to Be Soft in a Hard World, right? In a world that wants you to be hard, in a world that expects you to carry this weight that, oh, my mom is calling me, Mammy, I have a problem. You need to solve it. Oh, my brothers, how do you fix this? How do you fix this? It's like, when do you find that time that, okay, I can kind of relax, you know? And in our relationships, we always talk about how our husbands give us that allowance. They do take some of the burden on. But then what about when they're stressed, you know? So it's like, how do you sort of manage and balance that, you know?
That's good.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had Dr. Uche on my show recently, and she talks about how she has a support group. She's also, I think she's West African, but she has a support group for first daughters.
Yeah.
So
you don't understand. It's a thing. It's like for Nigerian, and I'm sure this is culture. This is across, but we're speaking from the lens of being Nigerian daughters. Being the firstborn, it comes with pressure. It comes with mental anguish at times. It comes with responsibility and weight on top of life.
Yes.
And so having to maneuver that can be difficult, but then also it's like, when do we get to be soft? And what does softness look like?
Right.
And so I think that really does kind of segue, like, what does embracing softness look like from a mental health perspective, Chanda? What does it look like from an empowerment perspective?
Yeah. I really would love for us to, as a people, to reframe how we're seeing that soft life. Because like you said, when we go on TikTok or social media, what have you, we're seeing, waking up late and, the kids being taken care of and, finances taken care of or what have you. But also you can still have a very hard life while living that what the world perceives as soft.
That's it.
Right. So all those things happening in your world, but also you might still be stressed out when the content cameras turned off. Right. Your husband still might be, doing X, Y, or Z to stress you out. So really defining what that looks like for you, and also disengaging from this lens of what we've allowed capitalism and proximity to whiteness has appropriated soft girl and softness and what it really looks like for us. Because when we talk about even the concept of Black excellence, right? So that's been another term that's been exploited. So if you see Black excellence as, the type of car you drive or how much money you have or, again, like that proximity to how close you are to whiteness in terms of how society views you, then you're already lost, beloved. Like I think it's time for us to really start to redefine that. And redefining it might mean okay, what would it look like for me to live in an era where mentally I'm well? Right? What would it look like for me to live in a world where I have less anxiety? Does that look like me, do I have to change positions at my job? Do I need to communicate more to my loved ones about what I'm willing to do this week versus what I'm not? Do I need to reestablish boundaries? All these things has to do with soft life. Less about what we have and what we are trying to acquire. Because again, capitalism has done a number on us, but just redefining what that can look like for us from a mental health perspective.
I love that.
Yes.
How about you?
And I want to add, I believe all women need to connect to their inner girl, right?
Yes.
I feel like softness is connecting to her and understanding the layers of trauma that you may have gone through. This is the point where I always tell women, go to a licensed therapist, right? To go through that, because if you're a first daughter, especially in a Nigerian household, there's some things you have to let go. I know for me, I had to let go of control, right? My parents divorced at when I was 9. I had to let go of chaos and what that looked like for me. Even my relationship to my father, I had to mend that. There were so many things I had to do. And I always tell women too that for me, I knew I was with the right person, my husband, when he allowed me to feel like a young girl again, right? Like that innocence, that just the, I don't want to say softness, like, oh, he takes care of me and provider, but I just feel fully my authentic self.
I love
that.
Right?
Like you're able to kind of,
that's softness. That's the real softness.
Like literally, you know how you said like it's like a place where I can lay my head. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's how I feel. So I always tell people that's what softness is. When you are connected to your inner girl and she's not overriding you with the fears and control, all the things, that's when you know you're back to that soft self.
That's good.
That's really good. That's really good. I think for me, one of the things I had to let go was like perfectionism and people pleasing. I'm still working on people pleasing. But those were the things that being that first daughter brought out of me. Like, I have to do everything right. And if it's not right, I'm not touching it. And that fear of failure to launch held me back bad.
Let's not talk about marriage. Look,
I'm scared. Like, if it ain't gonna be perfect, we not doing it.
She's like, I don't think it's right. I think we should just wait another 5 months.
I gotta have all this.
Put it out there. Yeah.
But
I resonate with what you both said. I think that not even just the first the first daughter thing, but I think just even from the lens of like trauma, right? And what people recognize as trauma. Because I think that, again, we are able to see these big T traumas like divorce, and we're able to see abuse and all these big things as trauma, but it's also like constantly looked at as a disappointment is trauma, and like how that shows up now in your marriage or your relationship, or how you show up in the world, period. And so now you're anxious all the time, and you don't understand what where the root of that is from. And so being able to kind of understand and peel back those layers, getting into therapy, even just doing the work itself, because I think sometimes it's like that mirror we don't want to look like. How many of us like go into the bathroom and like naturally you don't look in the mirror automatically until like maybe you're all done up and put together, you know, like and sometimes and it's not until like we kind of get raw with ourselves and say, okay, what are the blemishes? What are the areas I really need to focus on so that I can come up as my best self, so I can understand what softness looks like to me. Because softness to you and to you and to you is not necessarily going to be softness to me. So I really appreciate that conversation and that lens, ladies, for sure.
And even, I like what you said about like, you know, running from the mirror if we're not all done up. Sometimes even softness is learning to accept what it looks like when I'm not done up.
That's it.
Right? Because as Black women, we're so used to the mask and performance and how the world sees us. So when we get to, you know, get home and we're with our most vulnerable selves, what does that look like when we can accept that? I think a lot of us can
love it.
Yes.
And I even want to add, because I love you brought up the mirror, also looking in the mirror and affirming yourself. Right? Like literally saying, I am loved, I feel soft, you know, whatever that looks like. I know for me, during COVID, I had this I believe her name is Toni Jones. She does these beautiful affirmations on you know her. And I just would literally listen to it. She'd be like, in my heels. I'll be in the mirror just, you know, saying that. And I didn't realize how healing that was for me as well.
That's so good.
That's a good tool. And you talked about the mask, and it made me think of code switching at work. Like like my kids would hear me on the phone, they'd be like, why do you sound different? You know? Why are you talking like that? So it's like as I'm growing and you know, getting more in touch with myself, this is how I talk at work. Like I'll be on a call and my husband be like, dang, you ain't going you gotta balance it a little bit. You just sound like, yeah, girl. So that's that. I like that comment.
But that is, and I think that goes back to Dr. Chanda's point about just like that proximity, right? Like we feel like we have to do that.
You feel like that's that's why I love the term AAVE and not Ebonics. Because they've now cut maybe Ebonics like a bad word. So I love AAVE. Like that is a way that people speak and talk, and
there's nothing wrong with it.
And there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't have to be labeled ghetto or less than. That is just how people from different regions speak, and
it's accepted. Because I think a lot of times I think that also kind of, that's the mask or the weight or the baggage that we have to walk in and out the door with every single day, because we're not being able to show up as our authentic selves unless we're in spaces where we're seeing ourselves,
right, where we're comfortable.
And that's not always the case.
And can we? I think another thing I want to talk about this whiteness thing is, and you said it beautifully, white women have been defining femininity and they weaponize it at work all the time. Those tears, oh, you were aggressive, you know, to me, and things of that nature.
That word aggressive is triggering.
We've all experienced it as well. So I like how so many Black women are stepping in. We have boundaries. We can say no. We can be vulnerable. We can be raw. Like all those things is not just what white women have. Black women have those as well.
Exactly.
Have y'all seen the new season of Black Mirror yet?
Ooh, no, I haven't. I heard about it though.
I have.
I'm scared of that show.
I think it's the second episode. Yes, with the white lady at work. Yes, there was a Black woman. Okay, spoiler alert, y'all.
Spoiler alert. Give it
so there's this white woman at her job, this Black lady, you know, having conflict. And so she noticed that anytime the white woman would tell the supervisor about something that the Black woman is doing, she's like, everybody takes her side. She starts becoming tearful, and she's like, you know, stop yelling she's literally talking at a tone like this. She said, oh my gosh, she's yelling. She's talking. She's yelling. And the boss is like, why are you yelling right now? Like,
she's like, well, what is happening?
It was literally like she had a remote control that can control everybody. But of course it's sci-fi, but it just reminds me of how like sometimes like white people who tend to control like a lot of their environments or what have you, can manipulate people into believing that we are the aggressors when we're simply just communicating. And so sometimes that can cause us to feel hard, right? And so,
or be perceived as hard.
Perceived as hard too. And that's where that softness comes in, right? How I can communicate, I can be angry and also be my soft self. And I'm not going to allow anybody to define me as any other way. Aggressive where?
Just aggressive where? Just because I use my hands to
exactly. I'm just expressive. I'm just expressive.
I use my hands.
I love it. I
love it. Thank you. Child. Good conversation. Boy.
So earlier you said something about how your husband made you feel safe and more in touch with your inner girl. And so our next question is about romantic relationships and how does softness help you or hurt you in romantic relationships, and especially if you're a woman that's had to lead or protect or be the strong one. How does softness help or hurt?
So I feel I'm trying to reflect on this because this can get a little controversial. So I feel like, okay, this is how I see it. I feel like as women, right, personally, I believe women should be in relationships where the man is the leader and the protector, right? That is my version of masculinity, right? I feel it is important because I personally think women, we are our best selves when we feel safe, when we feel protected. And also there's a layer of vulnerability that needs to happen in any relationship, right? And I actually think it's like a symbiotic relationship where the more raw and vulnerable I have become, my husband is able to do that. And we're able to have if you see some of the conversations we have, they're people y'all really have these conversations? We do. And there's a closeness that we have with each other. And I just feel like so many of that has been lost, right? I just had a post where I talked about, I think men are losing the plot when it comes to that. And there's many layers of why that's happening. But I think men need to figure out what does it look like to show up in a world where women are now, some of them are the breadwinners, some of them are more educated than you. What does that look like in that relationship? But I personally feel like, softness is just about opening up. And I think we led too much into being financial. Financial.
It's not the only part.
It's not the
right.
It's small part. It's a small piece, but to be honest, I'm looking at my husband for, is he able to lead us? Is he able to give us a clear direction? Our family? Is he able to be emotionally intelligent? Those are things I'm looking for. It's nice that, he makes good money, but I think a lot of women have confused that with the other things that are actually more important, right?
I think it was Girlfriends and Tony Child. She has a quote that she said on the show, and she's somebody's asking her what kind of man do you like, and she's like, oh, I want a man that's ambitious, a leader, this and this and this, and they were and the person asked her you didn't say money, and she was like, oh, a man like that is never poor. I
mean, the face too. That was definitely Tony Childs.
What? She's a man like that is never poor. So I don't even have to say that, right? Because when you hit all these other signs, it's clear that eventually you'll get to that part. So I wanted to ask.
Yeah, for sure. I'll just piggybacking off of what you said. If you when I'm in a relationship, I want to be able to turn my brain off. Critical thinking skills where
I want to be Lulu.
Yes, exactly. Because I come from that traditional household as well, where the man leads. You're in tune. You're taking care of business or what have you. And I would say, in addition to everything else that you mentioned, spiritually as well, I want to be able to be spiritually soft.
Come on, now.
I can't be the only one. Listen, I can't be the only one in my household binding and loosing things. You
better be doing it too.
Yes, I need you to be the priest of the household. That's how I want to live in my soft life.
I was like, somebody gonna go there. Somebody gonna go there. And because period. At the end of the day, and I think that you both said things that I think are so important, right? In a relationship, at least for the lens that I come from, I think that Memmi comes from, and I believe that you guys come from, right? The man is the head, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, that's in all aspects, right? And so you want somebody who you can follow.
Yeah. Yes.
And if I can't follow you, I can't be soft. There's no allowance to be soft if I can't trust, if I can't be vulnerable, if I don't see these things. And I feel like ultimately, right, when we're thinking about this, like deconstructing and tearing down the walls of being hard, it comes with like trust,
Yes.
right? It comes with trust, and it comes with this idea of like safety. I feel safe in this space because you've shown me that you can lead. You've shown me spiritually that you can lead. You show me financially that you can lead. You shown me emotionally that you can lead. And is it perfect? No.
Not gonna be.
That's why we're also considered helpmates, right? Because we also have a part to play as well. And I think that when we're giving so much of ourselves and being hard in so many other areas, sometimes we're not able to be soft in the places that count.
Yes.
You know, relationship-wise as well as like individually.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And what about women that associate? Because what everything we're saying is, when you said it was kind of controversial,
yes,
I was like, I can see how I've seen that conversation around, but what if the man is not good at leading this and not good at leading that? And we've talked about it on our submission episode, where leading is not about, oh, he's going to lead everything no matter what he's good at.
Yeah.
It's knowing when, oh, my wife is better at this, so she's going to run this. And my wife is better at this, she's going to do this, and I'll do this.
Yes.
It's not about just domineering the whole house and keeping everybody under your thumb. It's wisdom, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we want to submit to as women. And so what do you say to the woman that feels as though her strength is in her hardness, that she's not allowed to be that if she's soft, she's considered weak, or sees that as a weakness?
So I'm going to debunk something and say this is the reason why all women need to lean into their softness. And I think we may or may not know it, but with our cycles, right? So men's cycle is 24 hours, right? They get up, and by the time they go to sleep, they are recharged. Literally, as they're sleeping, the recharging is happening. For women, it's 30 days, right? Literally. There's times where our energy is up, it's down, different things. When our cycle's happening, we need to slow down a bit because we're now literally going through something biologically in our bodies. So I always
tell
that
week
women,
before where it's like, don't play with me.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Literally, every time I have an argument, I'm like, oh,
you gotta look at the calendar.
I'm like, oh, I literally have to go to my husband like, I'm so sorry.
It's not your fault.
It's me. I was off.
Literally.
It's that time of the month.
Low key, I was a little moody, and I'm like,
you had to look at
you have to look at the cycle.
If I start crying on the drop of a hat, I'm like, hold on. And everything affects me. I'm like, what's going on?
It's a cycle. So we all literally know this, right? And so I always tell women
don't
that
remember it, but
because we don't remember it literally ever. It's so annoying. Every time I always forget. But I always tell women, because of that, you have to have a different relationship with your body, right? And you have the different relationship with how you interact with the environment because of that. Yeah. And so that's why you need a man to be masculine, right? Because of those moments, right? And I feel like when you start to sync with your cycle, right, everything starts to thrive, everything starts to flow, and you just start to feel more in sync with yourself. And then you start to even make decisions from this, the gut, right? From this deeper place that men can't tap into, right? They got intuition, but there's a women's intuition. There's a different type of intuition. So I always tell women that, like, I understand you want to be hard. Oh, I'm a girl boss. And that's been pushed by white women too. That's a whole other.
I read the Girl Boss book.
That's a whole another conversation, right? And I think for Black women to start to align to our best selves, it's when we're checked into that and we understand there's a softness. We understand there's a time to be masculine, being logical, being analytical. There's a time to tap into that, and there's a time to tap into your femininity. And you have to be able to thrive in both. You cannot be hard all the time because you literally burn out. Literally. That's so good.
Yeah. So, really just encouraging women to figure out where they heard or saw these messages of weakness and what that looks like. I think a lot of times in our families, we don't recognize how we send messages to our kids about weakness, right? And, telling them like, you got to stop crying before I give you something to cry about. Or, as a woman, you just, suck it up. You take it on the chin or what have you, so you can just keep going or what have you. And a lot of these notions, we pass them down to our children, but we got to also think about where they come from. Patriarchy, right? Anytime we start to define certain features or behaviors and associated with, this is this is weak, this is man, this is woman, or what have you. It's rooted in patriarchy.
Yeah.
And so in order to, redefine that or to dismantle ourselves from that, we really have to start redefining like what it means to us for us to start expressing emotion, right? So could that also be a sign of strength? Could that mean that you're emotionally aware?
Yes.
Could that mean that you know how to communicate your emotions in a way that other people may not be able to, right? And so redefining that will help us to eventually dismantle it. But we just got to stop with the whole like this is weak, this is strong. Like it's keeping us from healing what the emotions that we should be expressing.
Exactly.
So
and I think that's even I think about my children, and myself and Memi, we both have a boy and a girl, and our sons are and I don't say this from a negative place, but we have emotionally sensitive sons, like they are, and I have to like remind myself his emotions are okay, his emotions are valid, but I also want to empower him, right? So I'm like, Levi, sweetheart, it's okay to cry. However, I want you to use your words. I want you to, because sometimes I'm like, boy, stop it. Please stop it. Like, stop crying.
Oh my God.
But I also recognize just like that, right? Like if I ever chastise him for showing emotion, he won't do it.
Yes.
Or he'll think there's something wrong in doing it.
Exactly.
So like I'm able to be into like, and my husband and I like will talk about it because he's like, he cries a lot. And I'm like, he does. he does cry a lot.
Yeah.
But if we ever make him feel like he can't cry, then
it turns
into a different emotion.
Yes.
It turns into, and so I always, and I'm like, and I tell him, I'm like, when you pray, Levi, like, you can give God your emotions as well. Like, I'm sad because of this, or I'm happy because of this, or I'm angry because of this, or I'm frustrated because of this, and it's okay. But I always want you to be able to use your words. And I tell Zion the same thing, because I'm like, it's there's more leeway and allowance for you to cry, but I also want you to use your words as well. I also want you to be comfortable and confident in what you're saying, and then also understand that sometimes you're crying really. There's
a time and a place.
Right. Like, you probably shouldn't be crying because I told you no, you can't have a snack.
Yeah.
First thing you do when you wake up. Probably shouldn't cry because of that. But I get it. And I want you to use your words. You're sad because mommy's not giving you what you want. Sure. So, I appreciate that. And I think that we need to recognize as a culture, and obviously we're talking the lens as like Black women, Black individuals, because that's our frame of reference.
That's our context.
We can only speak for ourselves. Don't have enough for y'all. However, so we don't want you to get offended. We just talking from our lens, and then obviously like emotions for Black people have been weaponized. Like our emotions have been weaponized. Yes. And so, I think that just ties back into this conversation of like why sometimes we choose hardness because it's safer. We choose hardness because if I'm hard, like I'm not even going to try to go back into like the slave trade and like
that's where it starts. Yeah.
Where they had to be hard because like literally you're ripping families apart from each other.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like there was a reason for all of this. Yeah. And so it's us now getting back to like, okay, we're not trying to swing the pendulum the other way, but we want there to be a healthy balance. We want there to be a healthy balance. Yeah.
And you talked about when you talked about Levi, that resonated because you're talking about the crying, and if you just stop it right there, it turns to other emotions. So like my son is 11 now. He plays basketball. Every time he loses, he
crashes out.
He crashes out, and it's like, as he's crashing out, we're like talking to him like, hey, it's okay to have the emotions, but can you wait till we get home?
Not on the court.
I was like, and it's like trying to teach them the reasons. Like, you're the leader of this team, like you want to lift your teammates up. You want them, but it's like 5 times you do this time, but after the 6th time, his grandma like, I think we're to cry every time. And it's like,
because we don't win.
It's like, but I don't know. It's interesting being a parent and thinking of all the things that were like done to you that formed you, and it's like you don't know every single thing. Like, was that good? Was that for the best or was it for the worst?
Right.
Because I need to know before I start doing it to them or being aware of what you do to them.
Yeah.
So that's like very interesting. And so as we're talking about softness and living in your true authentic self, how do you relate that to like parenting, marriage, motherhood,
relationships,
just in general?
So I would say for me, I'm not a parent yet. I just got married, right? But I think what's been interesting about our relationship, I think me and my husband, is we did a lot of therapy beforehand, because I think another part of this conversation is the ego, right? A lot of marriages, they get shaky and they get all over the place because ego starts to come in. Right? And I think for me, one of the best pieces of advice I got when I entered into marriage was, you have to make a decision to love each day, and you have to make a decision like, are we in this or is divorce an option? And you have to have a real honest conversation around that. So I know for me, anytime that, me and my husband were like just button heads and it feels a little off track, I remind him of a book. And I tell everybody, every man should read this book. It's called The Way to Superior Man. And it's about talking about masculinity and what it looks like, and femininity, and just how that relationship, aligns. And so anytime we're a little off, I say, husband, now look at the book. That book, go back to that book. You read that book. You preach that book every day, all day. Are you truly in your masculine? And are you allowing me to be my feminine? And I directly say that to him. Are you allowing me to be soft in this moment? And then he reflects on it. He's like, no. And then we have a really open, honest conversation. So I also implore women that to start having those conversations. What does femininity look like? What does masculinity look like? What does it look like when I have it, vice versa, so that you can have those honest and raw conversations. I think a lot of times, like, people are just arguing and they don't even know what they're arguing about. Right? And I think it helps us in our marriage.
That's good.
That's good. And, just the way you said it, it was amazing. And I just want to add, like, really it goes into protectionism, right? So, like, being able to protect what softness looks like to us. So after we define it, of course, and, going to therapy, things of that nature. When you have kids, right? So I'm not a parent yet, but when you have kids, you're going to have, little beings asking you at 6 o'clock in the morning for snacks.
That's right.
Or, in your personal time, they might evade that and say, let's have playtime or what have you. And as a mother, you might experience guilt. Like, okay, I should be showing up. I should be doing X, Y, and Z. So protecting your softness by saying, you know what, mommy's going to do this later. Right? I'm going to set those boundaries. I'm going to do what I need to do. Even in, a marriage. So like, you might have a husband who's requesting certain things at a particular time or what have you. Setting boundaries with your husband without guilt. Even with business, being a business owner, CEO, y'all are amazing ladies doing amazing things at your jobs and things of that nature, but also like learning when to cut the computer off. That's right. That's how we protect our softness, right? So, different ways that we can kind of incorporate that into our day to day, because when we do start to embody these different roles in life, whether it is motherhood or being a parent or what have you, or a wife, our softness gets challenged. But every single day. That's it. But it's up to us to continue to protect it.
And actually, I have another layer, because you just, I think, brought up a good point. Understanding as women, we have multiple identities. It's so, I think that's another thing we need to protect. Because I feel like right now I'm in the chapter of being a wife, right? And there'll be a new chapter of me having children. And I want to maintain the original identity I have as a woman, right? And I think so often when you get married and have kids, a lot of us, especially Nigerian women, we all go straight into I'm a mother. My children, they are literally my legacy.
Exactly. They're because mama something.
Exactly. They're my legacy. They're moving forward. Like, that is the whole focus. And I think a lot of us saw our mothers do that, right? And you don't realize it until you become an adult, how they lost elements of their womanhood, right? Because they're fully, my mom was a single mom, so she was focused on, are you getting straight A's? Okay, you're a cheerleader, I'm taking you everywhere, I'm traveling, I'm making sure you're having an amazing life. And so now I know for me, as I'm an adult, I'm reminding my mom, go back to being a woman, right? Like, go back to that original identity you have. I even gave her a book to write her whole life story for me, right? So I can have it for myself and for my children. So I think that's another thing we need to protect as well.
And that's really good when you put it in that context. Because I think my mom, whenever I think we went to Vegas. I went to Vegas with my friends in 2022 to see Usher. And I think that year I was just doing a lot. I was doing a lot. I was going to mad concerts. I was traveling. I went to Texas to see Beyonce. So my mom was like, when you were younger, did I ever leave you to go and hang out.
Gallivants.
Yeah, gallivants. That's my favorite word.
African
Oh my
mom's favorite word.
Like, did I ever leave you and your and your brothers to go and hang out with my friends?
Yeah.
And in the moment, I was like, no, but I wish you did. You know, I wish you did. And it's like, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's my mother. She was an amazing mom, did a great job with us, but we are her world. And
same with my child.
We are her world. And it's like, now that we're all out the house, it's this, every time I talk to her, I feel like, Mommy, are you okay? Is everything okay? And it's just like, where you never got in touch with who you are. And we had a guest right before us that talked about growing up, she was her dad's daughter. Then she became her husband's wife. Then she became her kid's mom. And it's only now that she's realizing, who am I?
Right.
You know, who am I in the season?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just think that's just such a good conversation.
Yeah.
And so you were talking about boundaries, and I wanted to ask, what are some boundaries that you guys have put in place to protect your softness or your mental health?
Can I go back to what you were saying?
Yeah,
though?
sure.
Okay, so I love this example because I think this is a perfect example of like how generationally we're so different. Because our parents and their parents or what have you, they literally gave up who they are and who they were in order for motherhood, for being what the world perceives as a good wife. And I remember, like I said, I'm not a parent yet, but I had a friend. We were in Jamaica, and her mom just kind of like kept blowing her up. Like,
both of us.
Yes.
We can't do nothing without our mothers being like,
my phone is on Do Not Disturb because I guarantee you my mama has called me during this podcast.
And if my mom calls me and she knows I'm here, she'll be like, what about your children?
Yes.
Did they eat? Where your kids at?
Yes. So she was upset. She was taking care of the kids, trying to figure out the, air fryer or whatever. And she was just like, I don't know what's going on because when I was her age, we didn't travel like this. We didn't. And it's just like, wow, like how do we kind of like break that pattern, allowing ourselves to still be feminine, to still be like, if we like to travel, continue to travel.
And I feel guilty about it.
And I feel bad about it.
Yeah.
I can't. You can't make me feel bad about that.
I mean, but that's why I moved to Nigeria. Low key. Because I was like, I need to have a village around me when I have children. And because I still want to have the identity of being a woman and a wife and a mother. And I want to be able to have all those interchanging with each other. So that's the reason.
Wow. And see, that's also choosing softness in a very practical sense.
Intentional.
Like I know what the vision is. I know what the goal is. And in order for that to happen, this is what I need to do for myself. That's so good.
Yeah.
Ooh, child. I love this conversation.
All day, to be honest.
And so as we round up, like how do you
they didn't answer about boundaries.
Sorry.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so it's like, what boundaries have you two put in place to protect that? I know you just talked about moving to Nigeria, so that's kind of how you're kind of instituting and preparing for boundaries in the future. But what are some boundaries you guys have in place to protect your softness, your mental health?
I have to work on my boundaries. Yes, I'm fully aware of that. That's not something that I shy away from. But in a perfect world, I would say more boundaries when it comes to work and having a specific time where I'm working on specific things as opposed to trying to do everything all at once and then nothing gets done.
That's right.
I would say that's a boundary. Boundaries with family, and also going back to my boundaries with work, I find that I'm missing like birthdays and important things that my friends and family members are having, which makes me feel guilty. So I think that really just speaks to like, the things that I need to start prioritizing more.
So I have two clear boundaries I can think of. Number one, so I run a business with my husband, right? And 99% of the time is flowing, is good. You got that 1%. The heat in the room. The heat. But one clear boundary I have implemented, because men, they could talk about business all day, every day, right? It's like he's on the phone. Okay, what do you think about the podcast and what we're doing? And so what I have done is, like, the other day he did it, where as soon as I woke up, he woke up like calling me because he traveled. And he's like, okay, so let me tell you about the podcast. And I said, babe, I just woke up.
Just open my eyes.
I need to see what's going on in the world. I need to see the sun on my face. I need to rest into the day. And then I can have a conversation
I'll
around
call you
noon.
back.
When my brain, when my brain, let me have my tea. You know, I like my hibiscus tea. Let me have my hibiscus tea. And then we can have the conversation. So I have very clear boundaries with my husband around, and I have to implement them, because if I don't, every day is gonna be business. Even with date night, I'm like, babe, it's date night.
No talk.
Don't come in here talking about business or whatever. I am your sexy wife.
Come on now. Come on now. That's it. Period.
I think the other boundary as well, if I think about work, because you were talking about it, is a boundary with myself that I don't feel, so because I work for myself, I control my hours. And there's sometimes I'm not creative, right? Like I already know, because I've been in full like launching a podcast mode, I'm getting to the close of burnout for my mind creativity, right? So I'm not pushing myself to create new content right now, right? The content you see will be content that probably
ain't nothing wrong with
bashed together or something that I already, did a couple months ago. So I have boundaries myself, like, okay, I'm gonna push myself. I'm not gonna go over the edge. If I need to slow down a bit just to, refill my well, that's one of my boundaries as well.
I love it. And it's necessary, because I feel like it's so much harder to pick yourself up when you at rock bottom. When you at the bottom than it is to say, okay, all right, I'm getting to that point. Like, now I got to push myself up out of this and climb back to the top. And I think that's the same thing like in a marriage, right? Like, you're not doing the work when you see yourself stumble a little bit. You want to get to the bottom. And that's when couples want to go. That's when they want to do couples therapy. That's when they want to. I'm like, so you at the bottom. And that's when you want to go to the therapist.
Work. Yes.
When you already packed all your stuff out the house. And that's when you're like, okay, we're trying to make it work. But it's like you already kind of made up your mind at that point. So it's like, when do we, I feel like, that is, it's important that we're recognizing that, like, our boundaries, again, are going to be very personal, but we also need to recognize what our boundaries are and, like, stick to them. Like, if this is my boundary and I've crossed it, then what do I need to do to come back on the side? Yeah. So, like, as we round up, this is the last thing I want to ask, and we can round up with this, was being ambitious women, wives, friends, all of the things, can you leave us with what you feel like that merging, coexisting, that perfect world blend of ambition, drive, and softness? Like, what does that balance look like? And what kind of round with that?
Oh, man. I would say, for sure. I would say something that God has really been dealing with me on. I don't experience the softness that I want to sometimes when I'm overworking. And that overworking comes from a place of not being content with where I am. And so... So, like, when you're not in a place of being content, then you're going to constantly be trying to figure out, okay, what's the goal for next quarter? What's the goal for end of the year? What's the goal for X, Y, and Z? How many posts do I got to promote to
So you don't enjoy the success along the way.
Yes. So and you're trying to figure it out on your own. And it's like, okay, but what about what you have now? And what about, the amazing things that's going on in the process, right? And so, when... But I'm still praying about it. But like once we get to that place of being content with who we are, how God made us, and what we have going on right now, then we can enter into a place of softness.
That's a word right there. And the reason I want to just stay there just for 2 seconds is that, like, sometimes we mix, like, drive and being a go-getter and all of that with, like, you confuse it. It's like, no, you're really not content. You're not content. You're not satisfied. So you're chasing something that you're never going to get. As opposed to, like, because setting healthy goals, there's nothing wrong with it, right? You set goals in your marriage, you set goals in for work, for every aspect of your life. But when you're not content, that's a completely different thing, because you are always looking for something that you're never going to be able to grab and get. So, that was good. That was good. Chika, how about you?
I would say, and I've been writing a lot about this, and the response I'm getting from this is telling me that a lot of people are feeling this, specifically in their 30s, right? Is letting go of timelines, letting go of societal pressures of everything needs to be tied up in a bow at 30. Right? Let it go.
Let it go.
Like, what even is
let
that?
it go.
You know how young that is?
Because I feel that when it beautifully ties into what you said, because I feel like, I'm now 36. I'm going to be 37 in 2 months. And I feel like I'm now in my most soft self because I'm clear of my voice. I'm listening to me. I always tell people that when you're listening to other people's voices, you can't be soft. You have to listen to your internal voice and you have to be led by it, right? And I think because of that, I see people on social media, you know, they're getting married, they're having children, they're leveling up, they're getting a new business. And it's like, I'm happy for those people, but I'm clear on myself.
And I think that's so important in this social media era that we're in, because people talk about how Gen Z and the younger generations are having such a hard time with anxiety, depression, comparison, but because they're inundated with these messages, and they don't even know that.
30 seconds or less. Think about 30 seconds. You can do a lot
in 30 seconds.
In an hour.
There's
so much information overload.
Especially because videos are being like pretty much created for 3 seconds. They hook you in and you're just going, moving. And I'm blessed and glad I grew up in the era where there was no Instagram, no Facebook,
I know we know what life was before that.
Whatever. You know, we actually played outside. We connected with people in the wilderness of the outside. Exactly. You know,
the wilderness.
It was a wilderness. You would go outside and meet a friend, right? So I think for me, it's that timeline piece. And I think a lot of women, especially. This is the message I want to, I think, even just end with is the fact that a lot of us are going to get married later. We have to be okay with that. We might get children later. We have to be okay with that because literally society has shifted completely. And I think when you let go of all those elements, you'll feel more clear and like one with yourself.
So good. Love that. So good. I mean, if you ain't soft after this,
we don't know what to tell you.
We don't know what to tell you.
You're cooked.
I mean, you need to be defrosted maybe a little bit longer because I just don't know what to tell you. Dr. Chanda, where can they keep up with you? Where can they find all things related to you? If they want to know more, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you guys can follow me on all platforms, Paging Dr. Chanda on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and everywhere else. You can listen to the audio version of the podcast on Revolt Podcast Network, and you can watch the video version on Foxhole, Tubi, and Hulu.
So good. Chika, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram, TikTok. And then we have a podcast called the Afropolitan Podcast on YouTube. And I also have a newsletter as well called Unwritten Chapters.
And so we'll make sure that all this stuff is linked so that you guys can keep up with them. It's been an amazing conversation. We know this is resonating with a sister, a guy, it does not matter. This is resonating with somebody. And so we're so thankful to have you guys on the podcast. We already know they be like, y'all need to come back and we're going to have to sync the schedule.
Y'all have to come back.
How they going to do that? But we're going to make it work.
Nigeria.
Low key.
I would love to go.
Low key. We can do it in Nigeria.
Podcast swap.
Podcast swap. We will come and continue the conversation.
Don't threaten me with a good time. I will listen.
When? Okay. So this has been another episode from Chats on the Peak. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.